This is a comparison between the SMG 22 and the Hatsan Blitz. Show how the SMG 22 has benefits over the Blitz, how it has some weaknesses. I'm going to show how the Blitz has strengths over the SMG 22 and some of its weaknesses. The Hatsan Blitz and the SMG .22. Okay, these two guns are by far my favorite guns I've ever owned. They both have pros and cons attached to each of them. For myself, I enjoy owning both of them for various reasons. The reasons are the SMG 22 has strengths that the Blitz doesn't have, and the Blitz has strengths that the SMG 22 doesn't have. They both have weaknesses as well. I believe the SMG 22 provides strength in ways that the Blitz lacks, and the Blitz provides strengths that the SMG 22 lacks. Having both guns pretty much allows me to cover over each other's weaknesses. Starting out with the SMG 22. The strengths are that you can swap out tanks, which allows you to stay in a fight much longer than the Blitz. You can attach a scuba tank to it and provide potentially thousands of shots off a gigantic tank to it. You can attach hundreds of rounds of the belt to keep it firing as long as you want. This gun is absolutely deadly. Whoever says otherwise has most likely never owned one, and that's the truth. And perhaps only been plinking pellets out of it, using plinking pellets. If you load this thing with the H&N Hornets, you will see how deadly it is. I've personally shot those pellets through a steel barrel and shot into ballistics gel. It absolutely will penetrate ribs. Being able to shoot 12 rounds a second out of this thing and having the ability to have hundreds of rounds out of it means that you could do some real damage in a sustained fight. For hunting, this gun is best suited for smaller game. You could drop a coyote no problem with it. It would struggle against a deer, however. You probably could bring a deer down, but you'd have to pump a lot of rounds into it. Being able to pepper it with potentially, let's say, 50 rounds would drop that deer. It would probably need time to bleed out, though, as the rounds would not be enough to drop it instantly. That is, unless you got a good shot to the heart or the skull. It is much smaller than the Blitz, so it's easier to maneuver. It is cheaper, 600 versus 1,000 new. Pellets are much cheaper for the SMG 22 than the Blitz. Plus you have a much larger variety of pellets to choose from for the SMG 22 than the Blitz, as there is simply far more 22 pellets on the market than there is 30 caliber. Okay, some of the weaknesses of the SMG 22 are things I don't like. I do not like that it doesn't have a shroud around the barrel. I have a friend who does 3D printing, going to eventually have him custom make a barrel shroud to put around the barrel. I fear now if I drop it or bang it against something, it could potentially bend the barrel or put a dent into it, which would make it worthless. I wish Ordnance tipmen would have put a shroud around the barrel like the Blitz has. Another weakness is I've seen it jam when I've held onto the belt. It seems like if you put a little too much pressure onto the belt, it will jam the round into it. I've personally never had it jam when it's been loaded into the canister or had it draped over and no pressure on the belt from it resting on the ground. The gun being a 22 simply doesn't have the impact of the 30 caliber Blitz has. It has a much lower FPS than the Blitz as well, depending on the output regulator and the pellets you shoot out of it, you can boost the FPS pretty easily by swapping out an output regulator for a higher output. That said, it is still deadly. Now onto the Blitz Strength. The Blitz has a much larger round, which means it has a much harder punch when it hits something. It has more FPS with that bigger round, depending on the output regulator you use on the SMG 22. I'm simply saying stock versus stock, no mods. It has a protective shroud around the barrel. It has a switch select between full and semi-auto, which is nice if for defensive shooting. You most likely would not want it on full auto in a firefight, as if you dump the magazine, the other person would have time to swarm you. Semi-auto is nice to be able to position your shots. Full auto is nice if you're hunting. Some people believe that you should only need one round, which is fine if you're confident in yourself and your gun. That said, I'd prefer to turn it on full auto and dump the entire mag into, let's say, a deer to ensure it goes down immediately. I believe it has a much larger range than the SMG 22, although I haven't personally tested it out nor seen anyone test out the max range of the SMG 22. I base this on videos I've seen of the Blitz and the fact it puts rounds through wood at over 130 yards. I doubt the SMG 22 would be able to do the same at that distance. The Blitz is better for hunting large game. You probably could bring down an elk if you unloaded a clip into it. I'm not exactly sure if it would be able to do that, however, with a single shot, unless you've got a good shot, that is. It is the more popular choice, so that means there will be, in the future, be a much larger aftermarket for it. So you should expect to see companies most likely making mods for the gun. It retains its value better than the SMG 22, although they basically are pretty similar for used prices. I mean, the Blitz goes for roughly 800 used, and the SMG 22 goes for around 450 used. I just mean the percentage of what it would sell for is pretty similar. Now some of the negatives. You cannot swap the bottle on the Blitz. Once it's out of air, you must then recharge it. This is compared to the ease of simply swapping out a bottle on the SMG 22. The magazines are plastic, and the spring inside of it is attached to a small hole inside the magazine. With continued use, the magazine will eventually wear on that hole and make the magazine useless unless you drill another hole. Personally would prefer if Hatsan would make a metal case, or perhaps put a small piece of metal in between the hole and the spring to lessen the wear that happens on the magazine from this. The spring tension can cause jams into the gun, so you have to make sure the magazine you use still has optimum wear on it. It's much larger than the SMG 22, which makes maneuverability much harder. It has less rounds it is capable of shooting due to the smaller magazine and bottle. It is much more expensive to get into. The magazines cost 30 new versus being able to buy a 100 round chain off Ordnance for 15, and 30 caliber pellets typically cost more than 22. I personally think the SMG 22 is slightly the funner gun of the two, as being able to dump out hundreds of rounds at once is simply a blast to be able to do. It really does feel like shooting a Thompson submachine gun. For home defense, I'd probably take the SMG 22 over the Blitz, simply due to the ease of swapping bottles, cheapness of belts, and having the ability to have hundreds of rounds attached to it. The Blitz has 16 rounds, then you have to swap the magazine. You could pump 16 rounds out the SMG 22 on full auto and still have a crap load of rounds available. I just think if I was pinned down or in my house, the SMG 22 would be the better choice. That said, if defense was in the woods, I'd probably take the Blitz. Being able to hit at a larger range and the greater stopping power would be my choice in that scenario. That said, I'd still like to have the SMG 22 with me in that scenario. Just being able to keep going in a fight would make it much easier to stay alive. The Blitz is definitely the better hunting rifle by a mile. Both are very accurate guns, but the greater stopping power means you can hunt much larger game. So really it would boil down to what I was hunting. If I was hunting smaller game, give me the SMG 22. If larger, obviously the Blitz. So I hope this guide I've made will help you make your decision on purchasing these guns. I need to state this again, the SMG 22 is much more powerful than people give it credit for. Again, shooting H&N Hornets out of it will surprise you at just how powerful this thing is. I personally get into survivalism. Both guns are on my list of prepping. I have molds for both guns. Being able to make your own pellets, give them both advantages over firearms. The reason is you can make a pellet out of anything. Compare this to a firearm where you have to have the chemicals to put into a shell and have to press the bullet into the shell. This means that you will be limited at how long you can stay in the woods compared to a pellet gun. In theory, you probably would never have to go into society to get ammo with a pellet gun. If you prep properly, buy extra O-rings, have a spare HPA compressor pump, molds, etc., you could in theory stay in the woods for years by owning these guns. Well, that's my guide. If you like it, give it a like. I'll be making more videos. I'll be shooting into a ballistics gel, comparing how deep the two go into the gel. That'll be for a future video though. Okay, thank you.